Yes, we're back here Friday night, and you were thinking, where were we tonight? Well, I was just on the Work in Progress's wrestling show to induct them into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, but we are nonstop, never stop, unlike some, and we are back here to talk all things related here in the fallout of wrestling and AEW, WWE, and even a champion that could very well be out for an extended number of time. And to join us here and talk all those different things here, he is actually a member now of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, the 14th member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. No, that's not what we gave him. We gave him a certificate, not the championship belt. He also dabbled a little bit in that world. That is none other than, of course, the host of the Hockey Fan Chat and our resident wrestling analyst, Mr. Randy Dillon. Randy, happy Friday, and how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, Tom. How are you? What a week it was in the world of professional wrestling, though.
I was going to say, I hope you didn't get a torn meniscus on us or get injured on us after we inducted you into the Hall of Fame. But the news that I guess we have to start off with, it looks like, we were talking about Jinder Mahal and Seth Rollins. And certainly a lot of people watched our clip on Twitter and spoke about it, Randy. But it appears to me that Mr. Rollins could be out for an extended period of time. And maybe after all, they should have listened to some of us and put that world title on Jinder Mahal, because it could be apparently a sayonara to one Seth Rollins.
Yeah, definitely. It is a huge blow to Seth Rollins, especially 2 weeks away from the Royal Rumble, right before Mania season. I think everyone's anticipating him to face CM Punk at WrestleMania, and right now the status up in the air. There's reports coming out saying that he will be hanging out with. Oh, shoot.
I think we lost you there, Randy, for a little bit. Are you there, Randy?
I'm there. I might have to reload here.
Okay, well, while you reload, we'll certainly see if Seth Rollins can have the opportunity to load. But if you're joining us for the first time, I do want to say that we'll be back here tomorrow, also 4 o'clock Eastern time, with Luke Leyland, 9 p.m. British Standard Time. And Luke is going to be inducted into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. And also, Luke is going to talk about his experience of being the first non-African fighter to have fought in Dambe at the African Warriors Fighting Championship in Nigeria. He's going to talk about that. And Randy, you're alive. You're alive and well, Randy. Are you alive? Is
I am alive.
Really, maybe taking place on you? But I guess we'll start over again and we'll say hello to Jules. Jules, how you doing? And I know people were certainly wondering, where were you on YouTube? But as again, I say that I was on the Work in Progress show, and unfortunately, for different reasons, they can't stream the show live because we were watching a 1991 Royal Rumble, but the podcast will air tomorrow. But I did want to talk to you about Seth Rollins, and what do you think this means for the landscape of Monday Night Raw?
It changed dramatically because I was reading if he needs a torn meniscus, they're saying maybe 4 to 6 weeks, which he could be back Mania. If he needs surgery, definitely can be up to 12 weeks from what I was reading. But the thing with Rollins is we have to remember he does have a history with injuries. We have to go back to 2015-16.
Yep.
The tore ACL, and there have been reports his body has been through a lot. They've been building a storyline with it to see. So,
well, going back to Nakamura, I remember with Nakamura a few months back, and we kind of thought that. I think we were on a show, and we spoke about, well, what's going to happen with him.
Yeah. So definitely it's a lot of mixed reaction. Going to see what happened. I really think they're going to play this, wait till Chamber. After Chamber, see if he can go or not, or if they need to take the title off him to crown a new champion. That will give them a few
time out 1 second. And I'll say hello to you, Joe, a.k.a. Loose Cannon. I'll come back to you in a second. But you mean to tell me that WWE would let Seth Rollins keep the title but not have him in action at all? I mean, talk to me about why that would be.
Well, one heck, they've been doing with Roman Reigns for 3 years, so what the heck do we know? But and then with Brock Lesnar.
A good point. Okay, well, is that's the sole reason?
I think they know that Punk versus Rollins story going into Mania is going to be one of the hottest stories of the year, one of the hottest feuds of the year. We already saw a preview of it last year at one of the Raws. We saw his reaction at the end of Survivor Series. His tweets, they're definitely building up, and they want to do this, and they really know to get the crowd into this story. It's an emotional attachment there as well. So I definitely think they do want to play this. But I'm just thinking, if that can't go, then what do you do? Do
I
you?
was
Because
gonna
I
be. I was gonna ask you that. I mean, so if he's injured, right, and he's out for
yeah
a long period of time, and a meniscus, I mean, it can go either way. It's an
yeah
injury in running. I've actually known somebody that's had a torn meniscus. Obviously, they weren't wrestling, but they were a runner. And I remember asking them years ago, and I said, well, do you have to get surgery for it? He said, no, there's a way you can kind of prepare for it and kind of be able to, deal with the injury. But this is different because you're a wrestler. So, Randy, as I see you're having technical difficulties here with us, I mean, can he avoid the surgery or kind of hang on here for a while to get through Mania? I mean, what do you see on all that?
I really don't know. This is going to be a time. It's going to be a time telling thing because I think this is maybe the second time this happened. If he gets hurt before a big match with Mania, let's go back to 2017 against Triple H. That match
Yep.
was either question because he had another injury. And I'm really interested to see now what they do with the Rumble. It's because the odds-on favorite is Punk going to win the Rumble. I know there's a rumbling. Does it make more sense now to Cody win it? Hopefully it's not The Rock, but I know there is that plan. But we'll see what the reaction is. Or could we see Drew McIntyre come out and win it?
You really think? Listen, and I love Drew McIntyre. We have spoke a lot about Drew McIntyre. We still have this contract situation. I'm going to get to comments in a second, but I mean, could you really see though Drew McIntyre winning this one? I feel like he's come up short in all these big spots. I mean, I don't know. I just don't see him winning the Rumble. I mean, what you really think he could win the Rumble?
The only reason I say he could win the Rumble because I think he's the only other guy you can kind of push into a feud with CM Punk at this point, where there is a story telling
But if you
McIntyre.
win the Rumble, wouldn't that be your next in line to get that shot? You know what I'm saying? Like, I
Or they
guess if
could change it and say, ever win the Rumble, win the World Champion, win the vacated World Championship. He
well,
could
we
flip it
saw
on
that.
it.
Listen, I mean, today is actually speaking of that. Today is the 32nd anniversary of Ric Flair winning at the 1992 Royal Rumble, the then vacant WWF Championship. I mean, so what a small world there, huh?
Yeah, so definitely a lot of possibilities. We'll see what happens. I guess we'll have to wait till Monday to see what his announcement is going to be, if he's going to relinquish the title or not.
I guess you could maybe slow burn it, maybe at least get him through the Rumble. I mean, as to who wins it, and I will get to comments in a second. I mean, I think certainly Cody would be at the top. I think Punk would be at the top. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'll even throw it out there. Could you see, let's say, a Jimmy Uso, a Jay Uso, a Solo Sikoa to really make things interesting, just to put them in the mix? I'm sure they're going to be.
Yeah.
One of them's going to be in the top four. What do you say on that?
Yeah, I could see them. The other one, I think if Seth really can't go, I'm going to throw Gunther's name out there, and this is a chance
He was my next one. Yeah, he was my next
This
one.
is maybe a chance you give him the world, and he can take the you can.
And
This
he
is
was
how you take the
and he was the
IC.
one eliminated by Cody last year. He was the final one eliminated, correct?
And he started the match. Let's not forget that he went the distance and probably put on one of the greatest Rumble performances. So.
Yeah, I think that would certainly be a very, very fair point here. Let me get to some comments. Here is my phone. Unfortunately, went off. Yes, Joe, Seth is really injured. Seth Rollins is definitely really injured, and you're going to have to find out on Raw what happens. Yes, I'll get to that at some point. I mean, tonight we're talking Royal Rumble, SmackDown, but yeah, we can definitely talk about that one day. Hello to you, Jules. Jules also says, I've torn my meniscus several times. Surgery is not always necessary. Yeah, I mean, that's what I've heard about the injury. I guess the only thing might be in this case because he's wrestling, maybe he kind of has to get. I mean, I don't know. But I mean, I guess you could avoid the surgery, or maybe deal with the injury. But as she points out, yeah, it's quite painful and uncomfortable. So that I would certainly figure out here. And Ethan Soren said, hello, how are you? I am not really going to talk about the favorite moments from The Undertaker and Randy Orton. Just that I will talk about Randy Orton, though, for you, because Randy Orton had a big SmackDown. So if Randy Dillon, speaking of Randy Orton, if you want to talk about conversely the other side on SmackDown, I'd be more than happy to talk about that.
Oh man, listen, there is so much going on with this fatal four-way match. It's really getting you thinking, is this the way they take Roman Reigns, the title off Roman Reigns?
You said it last week on the show. Is this the way you take the title off him? I mean,
because if they do decide to Rock versus Roman, which if still up in the air. Everyone's thinking it's going to happen, but we haven't seen The Rock since then. Let's be honest. We haven't seen nothing
No.
for The Rock to come out.
But you're not going to see The Rock a lot. You know that.
No.
They're not going to he's an attraction. You're not going to see him that often.
But until he comes out and confront Roman, I'm not going to believe it till I see it, Tom, because we've been told this story for years.
We're on the same page. But The Rock is not going to contractually come out for every appearance, but they're going to only, slow burn this. But yeah, I mean, so you think then there's a legitimate possibility next week that maybe one of these 4 participants could take the title, and of the 3 outside of Roman, who would you think be most likely to win it?
I think Randy Orton is the one to do it. The only reason I'm going to say Randy Orton is if they somehow because then you kind of can do Cody versus Randy Orton.
The history there, we spoke about that. The history there.
Passing the torch, the big return for Orton. Cody wanted to finish the story. I personally think if he's going to win it, it has to be against Roman, because Roman right now is the ultimate boss. But I think Rock and Roman doesn't need a title at this point, because if Roman goes to WrestleMania with the title for another year and it's against The Rock, we know he's going to win. We're going to have to wait another year for him to have the title, and there's not much story left for him he can do. So I think at this point, it's better to take the title off him if you're going to go that route.
Let me ask you another question on that, and I don't know if this is factored at all into it, and you tell me your thoughts. I mean, is there any way you think, in a way, if Randy Orton wins the title, let's say next Saturday, it's also in a way to start eventually breaking Ric Flair's record?
I think it's a possibility, because it's not going to be John Cena. He's been in and out in WWE. I think with the minute Ric Flair went to AEW for his own reasons,
you just read my mind.
WWE was like, okay, we've been protecting this record for so long. We've had our opportunity to make the likes of John Cena a 17-time champion, and they didn't pull the trigger on it. Now, listen, Orton, he pretty much said, I'm going to go to 50-55 as long as I can. And if he is,
so I would have to think somebody has to break this record. I mean, I know Flair's great. I know Flair is the be-all, end-all, but I would have to think there's somebody to break that record. And I think Randy, in a way, would still be kind of at the top of the list because of his history with Rick, the history with Evolution. Randy said openly in interviews, Rick was his mentor. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if there would be anybody to pass the torch, I mean, certainly Rick's daughter, I would maybe say the other person. But if we're going to go straight on overall championships and Charlotte's out again. So, I mean, who knows there?
And she's not going back till late this year. We're talking October, November.
I think it's going to be more like November with that injury. We just saw her on Twitter. She was just getting on the exercise bike, but that's a long injury. And she just came back from an injury before that. But I would think Randy, if you're going to do it, wouldn't he be the most logical one at this point?
Absolutely. I think Randy Orton is the one you can definitely do it, because then it can set up matches. You do the match later down the road with Roman Reigns, or you do something with Cody. You can build that up. Different ways you can work it. So there is more, I think, opportunities to work with Randy Orton giving the title than AJ Styles and LA Knight. LA Knight.
Well, but also, and also, if just a real quick on the overall history, the historic point about taking Ric Flair's record, there's nobody else really currently that I would say on the roster is close to doing it. There's nobody else at this point that Triple H is not an active competitor anymore. Cena's pretty much done. He's not going to be in there other than, once in a blue moon. Mm-hmm. So there's really nobody else, because also champions hold the titles for a longer period of time. That was, in the Attitude Era, even Ruthless Aggression, you would be a champion for between 2 to 4 months. Now you're a champion for years. So really, Randy is the only other person left that could ultimately take that spotlight and break Ric Flair's record.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely sets up a lot of avenues down the way. And I think he deserves it with everything he's gone through, the injury, the work he's put on, kind of always been there for the company. If you're going to give it to someone, you give it to him. He's always been company first as well. They said he was going to break The Undertaker, beat him at WrestleMania 21, and he said, no, I'm not going to do that. There's been a number of times he should have been in bigger matches, but he decided not to. So this is a way you kind of say thank you for him.
Absolutely, and we're here on Sportswire Radio speaking all things related to the world of WWE and more because all wrestling matters here with, of course, the 14th member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame, Mr. Randy Dillon. You can follow Randy on Instagram and Twitter at Randy Dillon. You can also check us out now on Twitch. We are now officially on Twitch at Sportswire Radio. I know people, including Jules and others, have said, why don't you make TikTok? But I'm like, TikTok, I can't stream all of my shows live consecutively on our StreamYard account, but Twitch, we can do that. So I hope if you're out there, you don't catch us on YouTube. You can now also catch us on Twitch. We're also on Twitter at Thomas Bryce 2017, even on LinkedIn, and certainly our home on YouTube as well. And I want to say hello before things to our buddy, Mr. Ron Franklin. Ron, I wish you well with your Packers. We'll see you next week back at regular scheduled programming, and definitely want your thoughts on the Rumble next week. But I will give you Ethan's thoughts. This is a good question because, Ethan, you're on track on this one. He wants to know, is the bloodline going to betray Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble? I mean, that could be an interesting story idea. I mean, I guess we saw a little bit of that kind of where Solo jumped in. I don't think it's yet, but what do you say to that? Because actually, an interesting point by Ethan.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Because
Agreed.
I think if we saw it with Jimmy more last year, was more just the disrespect they were getting. Roman being the be all end all, pretty much him going for the tag team titles. I think the only Solo's around Roman because of the championship. I think the minute Roman loses that belt, then Solo's pretty much done with him. They've teased him with Paul Heyman, especially when he was doing his work, Solo and John Cena, how Heyman was in Solo's corner. They're teasing that Solo will be the next kind of big Paul Heyman guy.
I also think that the bloodline has been going in some variation for the better part of over 3 years. Why end it at the Royal Rumble? You know what I'm saying? Why end it? I would think you want to definitely go into post-Mania. I don't even know if there's a timetable on expiration with the bloodline, because let's say, Randy, you're right. Let's say that Randy Orton or even LA Knight, I don't think AJ would really have realistically a shot, but let's say LA Knight or Randy Orton wins the title from Roman Reigns next Saturday. I would think, though, there would still be an interesting storyline to develop as where does the bloodline go from here? I think that could still kind of linger for a while. So I would think that the bloodline, that story still got some layers with it, no?
It does have some layers, I think, more to do with Solo and Heyman, less with Jimmy. Jimmy's right now just kind of there waiting for a match with Jay, and they don't really have anything to do with Jimmy. But Trinity or Naomi, the report, she's supposed to be returning, so that will make the mix much more interesting down the road. But the bloodline, definitely you can do something with Heyman and Solo, but that you have to do kind of post-Mania, so you have way to keep them sticking around.
And that's why I think the bloodline's still here for a bit longer, and regardless of what the future is with Roman in that championship, I think that he'll certainly still hang on for a while as well with that. And I also want to conversely talk to you about the women's side there with Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch. I thought that was kind of an interesting omen for things to come, because conversely on the women's end with the Royal Rumble, I kind of think I got an idea who might win the Rumble, but I'm still going to ask you the same question. What do you think happens there? Because I would obviously think that the two favorites to win the Women's Rumble would have to be Nia Jax and Becky Lynch, and especially after what we saw in that segment on Raw and basically that history there that we saw both allude to.
Yeah, I'm definitely going that route as well. Nia Jax and Becky Lynch. Bayley, I know a lot of people are picking her, but I don't think so. Liv Morgan, maybe, but I know there's some illegal things there.
Yeah, I think Liv Morgan, not going to happen.
Mercedes Moné, we still don't. Sasha Banks, we still don't know if she's going to make.
I have no idea, Randy. I mean, I see her in Japan. I see her sitting at Impact Wrestling, when incognito. I don't know. Does she even know at this point?
I don't think no one knows. They're keeping this very slow lip here, but I think Nia Jax and Becky Lynch definitely are the two favorites this year. I'm actually pointing more to Nia Jax and Becky Lynch, because I think
to me that's my final two, because we saw right there that standoff with Nia and Rhea. And we already know that Nia Jax has a victory over Becky Lynch. And Becky Lynch talked about the fact their histories in terms of their championships. And I thought that when Rhea said she would welcome Becky Lynch to win the Rumble. That told me right there automatically that's what we're going to see at WrestleMania.
100%. You owe it to Becky. She's done a lot of great work doing what she needs to do. So it's going to be, it's really going to be interesting. Do they make this a triple threat, or do they do Nia and Rhea Chamber? Then Becky waits for the winner there. There's a lot of different possibilities, but I think Becky Lynch had a small. I would personally like to see Nia Jax win the Rumble, just because I think you can definitely put more of a story. Nia Jax is more of a can work that. You have two really good heels kind of working, can really get people involved.
Well, I was going to ask you, it's funny you said that. And yeah, I agree it might be two heels, but are we starting to see the seeds to be layered a little bit, Randy? And Rhea Ripley, not so much a heel, because the fans seem like the last couple months, and especially of late, they're starting to cheer for Rhea Ripley. And you would say heel versus heel, but I don't know. Rhea seems to be going her own direction compared to the Judgment Day. And I was curious what your thoughts were on that, because something tells me that Nia versus Rhea, we saw those reactions, and the fans seem to be into Rhea right now.
Rhea Ripley is the hottest thing, I think, in women's wrestling right now. No disrespect to timeless Toni Storm, but Rhea Ripley for the last year is the hottest consistent thing you have.
I agree 1,000% on that. I'm not that into timeless Toni Storm. I mean, I might be into timeless Toni Storm for other reasons, but I'm not into kind of like compared to Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley's on a whole nother level. What she's done since WrestleMania has been absolutely impressive.
Exactly. And she has the amount of work she's done with Dom and the Judgment Day, and so being the face of the women's division, it's pretty incredible. And I think she's now taking herself to that. I think maybe that Hulk. She's not a Hulk Hogan level, but getting there where you don't like you. Like she's a bad, like with the NWO with Hollywood Hulk Hogan, you didn't like the guy's character, but you respected the work you did, like how.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. Where definitely that NWO-ish, where I kind of feel like in some ways that they were booed, but then as time went on, or even like National Hall, the fans were cheering them. They were into it. I think Rhea Ripley's kind of got that, because, like I said, I noticed it, Randy, the last few weeks that the fans are getting behind Rhea Ripley. Like, I don't know, like how long can you ignore that? For how long, really?
No, you can't, especially when Dom's not with her. You definitely hear the crowd more cheer than boos, but I think that's more for Dom than anything. But
yeah, I don't know if it's X-Pac heat. I don't know what it is, but he's got that. And I do want to say a little before we get to some more comments. I want to say a little to Daniel Banner, because we had our live DJ return. Randy, Mr. 80, and 80 was he was playing all the tunes. I don't know if you're into house and techno. He was playing everything for hours. Back, he was playing music for so long, he literally fell asleep on the air. He was like, I'm drunk, I'm about to pass out, and he forgot to finish his last song. But he was giving a lot of shout outs out there. He did a phenomenal job. We had, I think, like over 200 listeners at one point. People were just so into 80 and in his return, his Friday night mix for the first time. And I think almost 8 months he was back. And Daniel Banner, of course, from our friends over at Kingdom Wrestling UK, he got a shout out, and I want to thank Daniel for tuning in. And Daniel's got a question before I go back into Ethan. And, I guess it's a good one. We kind of answered it, though. But do you think Roman Reigns is overpushed?
This is very interesting, because I think he definitely has been overpushed in years, but I think the last number of years, he's been able to get that off from us. I think when he returned with Heyman, everyone was so excited to see what he was, and I just think he took his game to another level, leading the bloodline. It's not the level of NWO, but it is somewhere in that pizzazz where you haven't had a dominant heel faction that strong, and Roman Reigns leading the way, being the top of that.
I'll tell you what, I'm glad you said that, because I was listening to one of our podcasts on sportswireradio.org that actually mentions. I'm going to tell you why that is. And you're going to understand this because you went out and attempted to become a wrestler and you trained. Very simple. because nobody really wants to be a true heel in wrestling. So that's why you don't have a true heel group like you had years ago when you had the NWO, where you had the early origins of Degeneration X or the Corporation or Evolution. You
Yep.
don't have that because everybody wants to be cheered. So you don't have that cunning, ruthless group. The NWO, of course, nobody was going to be the NWO because the NWO was basically, they were one of a kind. They were certainly,
Yeah.
at least from an American audience standpoint. So I think that's the reason why that nobody really wants to have a true heel that beats up face, because everybody wants to cheer. I think that's the reason.
Oh, absolutely. Like when I was at SmackDown a few weeks ago, like there was Logan Paul was booed, but I just think
I'm
that's
going to
because
get to him next. I want to ask you about Logan Paul.
Santos Escobar, there was a mix where he's that heel, but he was cheered as well because you kind of respect your work.
Great wrestler, yep.
I look at other heels that people booed, but they really respected. Like I look at Braun Strowman in his early days, like when he was a dominant monster, and a bad guy, but people actually liked the work he did.
Bobby Lashley, even for a period when he came back with the Hurt Business, and
with MVP, a lot of people respected that.
Yep. I think that would be my other example. But again, I say that's an asterisk because that was the COVID era, so there was no, there was no cheer.
You're not gonna get your classic heels like JBL. You're not gonna get your classic Bobby the Brain manager, Mr. Fiji,
Jimmy Hart. Yep.
Yeah, like it's really hard to get I think a natural heel in this day of wrestling.
Because everybody wants to be cheered. Everybody and the fans themselves, they cheer real quick. And yes, I want to get to Logan Paul in a second, Jules. I want to come back to Daniel in a second, but let me come to Ethan here. Do you think that before John Cena left, Nick Aldis should have had John Cena on? I don't think. All right, let me phrase it to you. Do you think we'll get John Cena and Randy Orton one more time? I'm gonna answer it for you emphatically. I say no.
I think possibility, yes, but this is more of of everything has to align perfectly. Like it did John Cena with the writer strike with Solo. We would never have gotten this if the writer strike was on. Cena's had opportunity to get in the ring, do some things, be on.
I'm gonna tell you why I emphatically say no. Here's the reason why. WWE very often at this point does not do legends matches. At this point, John Cena is 45 years old, 45 or 46 years old. Randy Orton is 42? So realistically speaking, that's a legends match. WWE almost often than not never does legends matches.
I can't remember the last. You have to go back maybe early, like in the early 2000s when Vince was running the show, maybe a legends match.
I mean, you had Hogan. I mean, Hogan Flair was actually, you got Hogan Flair once in 2002. Yeah. I mean, in terms of a quote unquote pound for pound, I don't know if I'd even call Triple H and Batista WrestleMania 35 a legends match. I mean, maybe
Taker versus the last legend match, DX with the Brother Destruction. It was just a mess. So I think we can.
Oh my God! Please don't mention that. Yeah,
that was technically the last legend match.
Yeah, and that was in Saudi Arabia. Oh my God! Yeah, that was. Oh my God, that was just. And that's Shawn Michaels' last match. We don't, we talk about people in sports. We talk about Randy in sports, how people should have stayed retired. Shawn Michaels had the complete perfect retirement. And I mean, Flair's blown it like 100 times, but like Shawn Michaels had the perfect one. He technically came back for that match. I mean, that's just,
And then Goldberg versus Taker, again, another legend match.
I think, what? Goldberg and Taker happened after Triple H and Batista, if I'm not mistaken. So that would be one. Yeah, I think Goldberg and Taker. I had Triple H and Batista, but I don't know if that's a quote unquote legends match. But yeah, my point is taken here. Okay, so also got a good one here. I'm wanting to see DIY win the tag team championships. What do you say on that?
I can see it happening, but right now there's the thing with DIY winning it is you can give them the title, but I think the tag team division W right now is so hot where now you got the LWO, Londago Phantasma. You look at the Creed brothers.
How about what we saw on SmackDown? How about what we saw on SmackDown tonight?
The Awesome Truth. You got the Street Profits, the returning Author the pain. The tag team division's so hot. The only thing with DIY I look at is they don't get the same reaction they did back in 2016 where the crowd was so hot for them. So I feel like if they do win the tag team title, it might be a very short run.
Have to remember though, this is a point, Randy. Have to remember though, who was your audience in 2016?
Yeah.
Who's your audience now? Remember, that was
Mhm.
NXT, right? That was your
Yeah.
NXT crowd. You're not in Orlando. You're not in that whole NXT crowd. So that's why I think you're not going to get that same reaction. And Jules says that she'll take being a heel any day. Well, you know what? I mean, there are a lot of heels out there that still can get it. But if you think about it in wrestling, again, my point is taken. And the person that said this on a podcast is quote unquote a member of the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame and a promoter. And when he said that, I was like, you know what? How many heels are maybe Gunther? Maybe Gunther might be a true heel. Gunther, I would
Gunther,
say out there. You know,
Samoan Joe, maybe you could say he's kind of a heel. MJF before was a perfect example of a
Christian
heel.
right now, I would say would be a heel. Throw Christian in there, but I don't know if I put Christian in the same category. You said even Santos Escobar. You said there's very few that I would say that are true.
that
Like,
can get
okay,
that can get the reaction. The last probably heel WWE had that probably got the reaction that he did is Baron Corbin. Like I think Baron Corbin was probably the last natural heel WWE has had. That, that
that's
people
saying
just
a lot
hated.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, let me get to Ethan. To be honest, I'd love to see Randy Orton win the championship. He should be a heel because he was a heel champion before. I mean, I feel like if he wins next Saturday, I don't think Randy Orton is going to be a heel champion at this point. I think that whatever Randy's run to me will be, it's because the fans want him there, especially after beating Roman. It's listen, whoever beats Roman at the end of the day is going to get cheered. I would have to think
Yeah.
because of how long that run has been.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it has to happen at some point. You have to eventually take the title off Roman Reigns. I don't know if it's next Saturday, but it has to be someday. I mean, I don't think the attention span of a wrestling fan can have him be champion for 5 or 6 years. Although somebody did make the point that in the last 3 years, the WWE has done the biggest business in the history of the company. So maybe that's the point that they could say in a defense that you should still keep him as champion. I suppose, Randy. I mean, that's just.
But I just don't know what more you can do with Roman. I think what really saved the bloodline when Roman made it past his 2 year with the whole Sami Zayn and the bloodline, that really was able to keep things going. I think if that wasn't there, the bloodline would have been kind of really stale a little bit quickly. Adding Solo Sikoa did add some mixer, and they kept it going with the family warfare with Jimmy and Jay versus Solo and Roman. They had ways to keep it going, but after you look at after SummerSlam with his win against Jay, they haven't really had much for Roman to do. He's been doing his regular thing with a face where he comes out, beats someone else, comes out, or comes in at the end. Like it's kind of now getting where he's doing the same thing over and over, where it's just like there's not much more he can do unless they pull a Hail Mary out of somewhere, or we don't know it.
I don't know, Randy. I don't know, but we are on Sportswire Radio. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters here on Sportswire Radio. And if you want to check us out, we're on YouTube at Sportswire Radio 6579 backspace streams. We're closing in on 500 subscribers now. 500 subscribers is important for a couple of reasons, Randy. The first is YouTube apparently gives us this super chat option, so we can have like a whole super chat, a community chat, all these different options. So you want to help us get there. We're 21 subscribers away. So if you've subscribed to Sportswire Radio, tell one or two of your friends. We're going to get to 500 very soon. But if you can help us out in the meantime, make it a little bit easier. We're inching closer. We've had over 100 subscribers in the last 2 months. So people are definitely getting behind us. We're also 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year on sportswireradio.org, either via the Watch Now button or the Listen Live button. And you can check us out. You have a podcast like Randy's. If you have a live music you want to play, because we have our DJs back, our DJ Steve, our DJ 80. We're going to have that Friday night spin. We're going to play that Stunk, all that great plays playing music that they have done, they're back in the fold. So you can check us out there. Also, we're on Tumblr at Sportswire Radio, and we're going to be back here at 4 p.m. Eastern Time with Luke Leyland. I cannot stress enough, you want to follow Luke Leyland. This is a great journey. So if you're here right now, you're going to want to tune in to hear what the legendary Luke Leyland has to say, the first non-African fighter to have fought in Dambe at the African Fighting Championships in Nigeria. So all great stuff there. Randy, follow him on Instagram and Twitter at Randy, DHILLON. So I wish Johnny Gargano got more pushes because he had fantastic matches. Yeah, Johnny Gargano, unfortunately, on the main roster, it's definitely been a tough sledding for him. I don't know if you can ever get that momentum back. I mean, guys have done it before. I mean, certainly The Miz might be one name, but it is very hard to get that momentum. I mean, Jinder Mahal is Jinder's, certainly he's got it, in lightning in a bottle, but it's very hard when you get knocked down on the card to kind of come back. But we'll see. I got a good one here from Daniel before I come back to Ethan. What are Royal Rumble predictions and returns?
Royal Rumble prediction and returns. Men's, I'm not really seeing any big returns coming up, big legends coming back. I know the talk of maybe X-Pac might make an appearance in the Rumble.
He claimed no, though, but that means nothing. He said on Twitter that he wasn't going to do it, but that means zero.
There was something coming out. I think Baba Bully Ray put it. Should the Dudley Boys have another run? Maybe he makes a surprise appearance in the Rumble. For the women, there's so much surprise we could see. We have your legends, Trish Stratus, Lita, Michelle.
How about Mickie James? She just got a job with the OVW. Mickie James was in the Rumble a couple of years ago as the Impact champion. We know who her husband is. That would be one off the bat.
That would definitely be one. AJ Lee, I think everyone, you've seen the pitch of her working out. At the big one, Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks. Tom said we don't know if she's even going to show. She doesn't know if she's going to show up. There's definitely a lot of interest in there. You got your regular legend, the Kelly Kellys, the Molly Hollies.
Kelly, I would want to have a hard pass on her in the Rumble with her lack of wrestling. Like the Kelly Kellys and the Tori Wilsons, they're obviously great to look at, but their ring skills, just judging them on ring ability, I don't know if those would be the ones. Mickie James, though, I think would be a no-brainer.
The woman, the one name that I do think this is a long shot, but there's always in the rumor throw up Mandy Rose.
You read my mind. Yeah, Mandy Rose would be an interesting one.
So definitely there. For the prediction with the men's, I think it's safe to say CM Punk's going to walk out for the men's. And the women's, I think, Tom, you hit the nail on the head earlier. I think we're going to see Becky Lynch winning her second Rumble match.
That's what I exactly thinking. One more on the men's side. He was a name we spoke about a couple of weeks ago who would make sense. Rob Van Dam.
Rob Van Dam is an interesting name just because I know they weren't happy when he went to AEW over the summer. They canceled his wrestling. He was actually supposed to have a thing at WrestleMania and they canceled that. So in Philadelphia. So I don't know if he's going to show up or not.
X-Pac is another one because X-Pac, I don't think we've physically actually seen. We've seen him on skits, but we actually haven't seen him do anything really in the ring since the 2002 aborted NWO run. We've never actually seen him do anything since that moment. So that's an interesting one, X-Pac. Yeah. How about one that's obvious? I don't know why anybody hasn't mentioned it. Nick Aldis himself entering the Rumble.
I think they're saving that. I think they want to save Nick Aldis' ring for a.
He's going to wrestle at some point. He's going to wrestle. Doubt in my mind. He's going to wrestle. Yeah.
I think what they wanted to bring him on as a character to get the fans familiar, to get him talked about, and I think eventually the trigger is going to be pulled where he is going to wrestle. I just think it's when though.
And one more. I have a couple of comments here from Daniel, Ethan, and Jules. I have one more name that I would kind of think I'm surprised nobody's mentioned because now he's back, hired by WWE. Any chance William Regal?
That is a possibility because I know the term whether the contract was when he signed with WWE, he couldn't show up on WTV for over a year.
It's over. That period of time is run out. He's able to come back, and I would think that William Regal would get a pop. I mean, just to him being the Rumble, I mean, this would probably be his moment to do it at this point. You know, if you're
Him,
gonna have the surprise, I don't know if you are. I mean, but if you're gonna go that route, I think that would be a name would be
I
interesting.
would love to see him and Gunther stare down. These are probably two of that would be something special to see.
I just I don't see X Pac. I think Mandy Rose was an interesting one, but I don't think Mandy Rose seems to be going to do it. I just don't see it. Mickey James makes a lot of sense. I think you also brought up Trish Stratus. Trish Stratus had a post on Twitter the other day talking about 2024. I think Trish Stratus has some unfinished business. That would make a lot of sense to me. So,
And
I
Trinity Naomi, the other big one you can kind of throw out there because he pretty
yeah,
much said,
I was trying to figure out, is Naomi officially left Impact? Has she officially left?
I think that pretty much he said her goodbyes. He said her contract wrapping. I just think when the official date of her contract is
Okay, all right.
done.
Let me get to a few more comments. We got a little more time left. Back in the days of WWE, John Cena, or I'm not going to answer that right now. And we love you. I'll get to your next point. So his names are Andrade, but is Andrade officially signed with WWE?
He hasn't signed yet. I think the reports are he's supposed to go there, and I don't know if they're expecting him to return.
Too soon for me. I think
Too
too
soon.
soon.
Yeah.
Too soon.
Mhm.
Big E, I think, is retired, right? I
Big
don't
E,
see.
though, it all depends. Do the doctors give him the AKA? Because I think a broken neck is probably one of the hardest things to come by. And I think Big E he's already said it. If his career is done, he's at peace with it. I definitely think everyone wants to see him coming back. And it's interesting how the Imperium have taken out Kofi. They're now dealing with Wood, so maybe they're setting up Big E versus Gunther for Mania, maybe, but for the IC champion. But who knows? Jade Cargill, I think, is the most interesting one
Oh
because I
yeah, I
think
think Jade
everyone is
Cargill
waiting
to
for her
me.
to show up.
I'm like wondering what is going. Somebody asked her on Twitter, like, "Are you wrestling?" And she had like some like funny response. I don't know if you saw it on her Twitter feed.
I think with Dave Mouncer saying this, he was saying they saw her wrestle and they didn't think she was ready. I know she was dealing with family stuff where her grandma was very ill and it was very hard and she was dealing with that. But also forget she's a single mother, so she has kids to deal with as well. So I
I
definitely
see. To me, my play on Jade Cargill would be the first day after WrestleMania. If I'm WWE with Jade Cargill, she's the day after WrestleMania. You reintroduce her. I don't think it's the Rumble. I think it's the day after WrestleMania. That's the moment. That's it. Day
Yep.
after WrestleMania, April 8th, right? That's the day. That's it. That's when she comes
I
back.
think that's their best bet because that's when it's the hottest and that way you're
Yep.
gonna make the big impact.
It's the start of the season, and that's it.
Alexa Bliss, yeah, I could see her making a surprise appearance, just coming in, just doing a
The
quick
baby's 2
thing.
months old. Yeah, Alexa Bliss is a good one. That's a good one. Mercedes, we've already talked about. Alexa Bliss would be a considered candidate. Didn't John Cena only win tag titles with the people he was feuding with? Maybe
Ms. Batista, yep, no, that's
Randy Orton.
no, he
Didn't he
never.
win the title with Shawn Michaels? Also, wasn't he a tag team champion with Shawn Michaels?
Shawn Michaels, Batista, David Otunga, and The Miz.
Yeah. I think the one that stood out mostly was the Shawn Michaels one because he was feuding with Shawn Michaels right where he had the tag team titles. Cena did his best on his own. Yeah, well, he wasn't
He's
a
one of the
tag team
best.
wrestler.
Yeah.
Yes, Cena was not the Dudleys. I mean, the Dudleys were the Hardys. Although Jeff had a good run as a singles run, but the Hardys were more or less tag team guys. But Cena was not. JBL was underrated. Current friends, please.
Yeah.
And we mentioned Trinity. Yeah, Trinity Naomi. I think that's a question mark. Anything else AEW related you want to talk about before we move on to closing thoughts? Before I come back into WWE, anything else you want to go over in AEW? Because I like to spend a few minutes on AEW.
I want to talk about the Hook and Joe match.
You read my mind. Yep.
The match, the idea was good. What they were building, but they fumbled the ball there really bad with that muscle buster and him kicking out at one and pretty much him hulking up. I know AEW said they never want to mention Hulk Hogan, but they pretty much did a Hulk up moment there where he took the finisher, got up because I felt I understand the way they were going. This guy got a lot of exposure the last few weeks. You want to put something good, show his fighting
And
spirit.
he bashed them about Jinder Mahal. And I know he said, well, no, look at Hulk's record, statistically speaking. Look at his record versus Jinder Mahal. When was the last time Jinder Mahal won a match? But the point is that Hook, how many people really bought into him being in the main event? Jinder, to say what you want, had been a world champion before.
Exactly, and it goes back to Jinder was able to do work with one of the best of all time. It was more of a reward saying, hey, good
And
job.
he beat Randy Orton to win his championship. Not for nothing, Jinder Mahal took the World Heavyweight Championship at the time from Randy Orton. You can't deny Jinder Mahal. And you know him, by the way, personally.
Exactly. And the other thing with Hook is, this is the one thing I wonder with AEW. They always do with AEW. They give someone a moment on television, make them look really good, and then they throw them away. So is that going to happen to Hook? Because look at a guy like Jay White. He got his big moment coming in.
We talked about him maybe being a guy to take the title away from MJF, and look at him now.
And now I think he's a trio Ring of Honors champion. So how did that make sense?
Speaking of that, Daniel has a question that read our minds. I mean, we've talked about this before, but does AEW lack with bookings?
Oh, AEW lacks with booking. I could go on with this for hours.
And Meltzer, did you see Meltzer's tweet? He goes, well, AEW did better than the NBA on Wednesday. When was the last time that happened? It was almost like, you really put that tweet out? I mean, who was even playing Wednesday on the NBA? First of all, the NBA, we know, doesn't draw in the middle of January. Come on.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think Meltzer also said on Tuesday they did now one of their highest ratings in Canada. But I'm just like, yeah, because
who was playing in the NHL on Tuesday? If I'm not mistaken.
McDavid and Matthews were playing, but they didn't put on national TV. I don't know why, but
I was trying to. You'll chuckle. I actually couldn't get for whatever reason, I couldn't get the Islanders and Jets on MSG, so I actually watched the Canadian feed for it, and I was like, what's going on here? I couldn't find certain games. So yeah, you're right. The Tuesday feed they weren't on TSN, if I'm not mistaken. Matthews and McDavid.
The dang regional requirement, but they have lack of booking. They have lack of creativity. Like you look at Timeless Tony Storm, the great example. They've booked her, and now with Mariah May, and you're just kind of thinking, okay, where is this?
And they bring Deonna Purrazzo in. Okay, so they're going to keep her in the big feud, but then we know in 2 months from now they're going to drop her down.
Exactly. The one thing I think AEW really can do well is this evil executive Young Bucks. The mustache, the character, are they going to be kind of similar to a evil Vince McMahon corporation type thing? So I think this might be the one thing they might be able to work well, but I just think this might not be the best time doing it with Sting's kind of farewell. Are you going to do it at this moment?
That's actually, you know what? That's a good point. I got a couple of good points I'm going to bring up here before a few more. Adam was the devil. Yeah, I think after a while it was kind of clear. I don't think anybody else could have played it, especially with the injury. So yeah, I would agree with you about Adam Cole. I will say though, I don't watch AEW as much as I used to, only because Wednesday nights I'm at a radio station, so it's hard for me to watch AEW or WWE. I feel like I watch nonstop. But yeah, I mean, I did follow it. I did watch the pay-per-view, so I mean, I saw that, so that was a point. But I think it's a good point actually from Ethan. But I'll say maybe later on down the road. Do you ever see Edge and Christian aligning down the road? Obviously, I don't see it now, but do you have a point on that? Because, I mean, I guess I'll bring it up just because Ethan actually had an okay point on this, I suppose.
I don't know. I don't think you need them to be in the tag team division. You need these two to work with younger guys to help get the other talent to understand the psychology of the business, kind of understand doing the move, the reaction. The fact is, people are kicking out of finishers at one, is destroying it. Imagine back in the day, someone kicked out of the Ultimate Warrior Splash.
I just watched the 1991 Royal Rumble. I watched the whole thing before we came on the air. Could you have imagined if Hogan did the leg drop and let's say Earthquake or even Mr. Perfect kicked out at one?
Yeah.
Vince would have basically blackballed them forever.
Same thing. Bischoff would have probably done the same thing in WCW if someone did something like that. Like,
Yeah, true.
there's definitely with AEW, it's like they cater to the kind of a fan need where we want to please the fans and make all the fans happy.
But that
But
goes back to the point that I made, Randy, where in a way it's like heels, right? There's nobody that's that true, cunning, ruthless heel that doesn't care for the fans, right? You look at WWE, we spoke about that, but in AEW, it's almost like they're run by like the cool kids kind of. To me, it's almost like AEW is like an indie rock band, right? Everybody wants to be like they want to be written well, and they want to be popular, but you have to have something that continues for the product. And we've spoke about this like a dead horse. Randy, I've been doing shows with you on Sportswire for over 2.5 years. That's why you're in the Hall of Fame. But the point is that I feel like it's the same problems we've been speaking about with AEW for the better part of a year and a half now. And you have to do something, and you have to want to take risk or do something to deviate. And I feel like they have the same problems that were being repeated.
It pretty much is. Like, I look at the lights of like the biggest mistake AEW made was probably making MJF a face. Him as a heel pretty much was their ratings.
Yep.
Like with the whole thing with Punk and everything going on.
How about Sammy Guevara? Even they kept turning the whole thing should have been to clear him as a heel, and then they turn him right back as a face. How about that?
With pretty much putting with buddies with Jericho. Like, I understand injuries come along, and there's sometimes someone wins a big match, they lose, and then you have something really good with Swerve Strickland where if you want to put the world title on him, now is the time. Where I thought the end of the Hook and Samoa Joe match, Hangman Adam Page came out, so it kind of looked like, okay, you might be getting these two at Revolution, where like this guy has really been over. And then I look at the likes of the Acclaim, who really forced the hand in the tag team division.
Yeah, we spoke about them in the summer, how it was like, okay, you took the titles off them, and their momentum was lost greatly after that.
And then you put the trio title with Billy Gunn, and like it's like, wait, they have the belt. And then Malachi Black with the House of Black, they were doing so well, but they never really gave him that big kind of singles push to make him solidify it.
It's like, listen, I hate to say it, and I'm going to get to closing thoughts in a minute. It is like Bischoff is right. The inmates run the asylum in that company. It's like the same problems WCW and Impact had, by the way. It's the same problems. Speaking of that real quick, and thank you, Daniel, for the comment, but what do you think about it now becoming a new, it's back to TNA? You like that? I mean, did you watch
I like it. I think it kind of brings back that old feeling, that six-sided ring when TNA was at its highest, brings the light of, you're thinking Samoan Joe, AJ Styles, Kurt Angle. Some of his best work was in TNA.
Machine Guns, obviously, Motor City Machine Guns.
We saw a different angle of Sting. Like, a lot of people were thinking WCW.
I think Sting's run. You know what? I'm so glad you said that, because I think Sting's run in TNA is so underrated, so vastly underrated, because he had great work with Samoa Joe. He had great work with AJ Styles. He had great work with Kurt Angle. He had great work with, again, also Booker T. I mean, he had some really great runs there. Christian, and I feel like Abyss. How about Abyss? Abyss also. I mean, and it kind of gets forgotten because everybody's focused on the WWE, the WCW run, and then like his running TNA / Impact. He was actually there for like 8 years. People realize he was there for 8 years.
And he was a founding, and he really was a stable there. Like, he was an attraction. He was a stable.
Hogan, the run with Hogan. I mean, he had a Bully Ray. I mean, he Jeff Hart. I mean, I feel like I just listed like Sting had
Mr.
some
Anderson.
Yeah, good point. I mean, the list goes on. And I feel like it just doesn't get talked about. Does it?
No. I think like Tony Khan, I think, tweeted out when Sting was announcing retirement. He said AEW is the best Sting run. I'm just like, I was just like,
did he not watch WCW? Did he not watch even the Impact TNA run? I mean, they were drawing 1.3 million.
To his WWE run, we'll never know how Sting's run would have worked out with the injury. We're never going to know.
They screwed him over from the beginning. He went there. I got to be honest. He should have, the way they jobbed him, even with the Triple H match. I know people can say, well, the way it was done. I just think that I don't know. I think Vince, it was typical Vince, and Triple H should not have beat Sting, in my opinion.
No.
I just think.
Triple H even said that he said it on record saying if we only did it because we thought we were going to face Rock and Ronda next year. He said if he wasn't going to face, if there was no Rock and Ronda plan for that following Mania or idea of it, I don't think he would. I think he would have taken the loss because Triple H apparently had the worst wins-loss record at WrestleMania.
Yeah, you go back even from like the
Yeah.
early runs. You think about Ultimate Warrior loses in like 90 seconds or 100 seconds. The runs with the Undertaker. You think about even his matches, if I'm not mistaken, and like with well, I'm trying to think, it was also Kurt Angle. I think Triple H and Stone Cold. I think right with Stone Cold and Triple H one Mania.
He lost the 3 Manias in a row to Benoit. I'm sorry to say his name, Batista and John Cena. So, and to put these guys over to let them win the belt. So, he had one of the worst win-loss. So, definitely he's not. Definitely, I think should Sting have won absolutely that match, but other things happen and.
Right, and Kurt Angle was with Ronda. Kurt Angle and Ronda, Triple H and Stephanie. That's what I'm referring to. Austin and Triple H didn't have a match. It was more Austin after Triple H came. I think after with The Rock with that unholy. I think. I mean, somebody can go rewatch the tape. But the point is, I agree with you. Triple H's record in WrestleManias was not very good. If you go back in his career record in WrestleMania, you mentioned WrestleMania 20. I mean, my other one though that I wish he didn't win was the Booker T match. I mean, that was another.
That's the other one. I think that one that one definitely you could see he was on the high. His ego was running wild there.
That was not really good. Let me get to a couple comments here but before I do that though, you like the name going back to TNA? You good with that?
I like it. I think it brings back familiarity. It brings back a lot of those old fans who are familiar with the product. And listen, they made the move. Nick Nemeth, Dolph Ziggler, Dana Brooke. I can't remember her name.
Mustafa Ali. Is Mustafa Ali in
TNA?
No,
Mustafa Ali. He hasn't signed yet, but they're saying he's probably one that anywhere he goes right now, he's creating a lot of money and buzz. Same the way at Matt Cardona. I think that's one guy they definitely dropped the ball in.
Well, I think the one you're thinking about is Alexander Hammerstone. Alexander Hammerstone might be the one that could sign with because he had the match with Josh Alexander. Alexander Hammerstone is important to us on Sportswire because last year at this time we had interviewed a man, not once but twice, that wrestled Alexander Hammerstone when he was the MLW World Champion, our friend Vito Fratelli, who is ranked in the PWI 500. He's number 390, and he wrestled Alexander Hammerstone not once but twice when he was the MLW Champion. And he's our friend here on Sportswire Radio, so obviously Hammerstone, we're rooting for Hammer. But yeah, I would think that would be a guy that could be on the radar. Nick Nemeth, I mean, that's going to be a big one. Really like how they did that. Mustafa Ali, I think you said you're right, New Japan.
Top Dollar showed up in
Top Dollar. I saw that. Yep, I saw that. So yeah, I think TNA. I always liked TNA. I was always a fan of TNA. I don't know if and you had it in Canada, but I first got into TNA by Fox. No, but we got it through Fox Sports Net. Was the first way I watched.
Spike Network.
So Spike was your first. My first way to watch TNA was through Fox Sports Net. Let me get to a few more comments before closing thoughts. Adam and Christian's view is just feeling too bland. It could be a good way to build up Luchasaurus's turn on Christian eventually. Maybe. I don't know. AEW to me is like, I don't know.
You never know what they're going to do.
Exactly. God.
You think one thing, but next thing you know, the script got flipped. Like the whole Swerve Strickland on his high, but 2 years later, after teaming with Keith Lee, they have a big match.
You won't even see him on Dynamite. Yeah, you won't even put him on Dynamite.
He's actually dealing with health problems. The reports are he is dealing with some serious health problems right now with Keith Lee. So hopefully he does get
Keith Lee's one of those guys. I got to be honest, Randy. In 2020, he had a chance to be a big guy in WWE, and it never quite crystallized. And I don't know if he'll ever get back into that. So we wish him well. If MJF wants to be a heel, I think AEW should have done what he liked to do. Yeah, I think we generally agree he should have stayed heel. Good call on that one. It should have been Undertaker versus Sting. Yeah, but not in 2014. Unfortunately, that should have happened in 2004, not in 2014. That would not have been, I don't know. I mean, I think Sting Triple H was okay. I just, to me, think Sting should have won that match because he meant so much more than Triple H, because Triple H was in that run. Now, you're partially right, Triple H was Undertaker, who was the loyal company man, and that's you're correct partially. But Triple H, I was okay with him having that match, but he shouldn't have won that match. And the way to me, it was like he never technically won a singles match in WWE or a major one. I mean, that's really like my biggest bummer with staying in WWE. And it should have been Undertaker, but certainly in 2004. The two Triple H matches with Undertaker were the best, yes, but he lost both those matches. Yeah, they were absolutely memorable. 100%.
Hey, because Seth had match at WrestleMania 17 in Houston, Texas, before that back-to-back one. That was a good.
That was the match where they were feuding with the bike, I think, right? That was the one with
they went to the stands and all that, like on the top part of the stage. Like that was a
great match. Yeah, that was a very
match.
Good
a lot of people forget about. It's probably their Hell in a Cell match
because of the Shawn Michaels Triple H back-to-back runs, but that was a great match, and that was good call. Good call. That was a great match. Yeah, that was an underrated card. Kurt Angle and Kane was on that card. You had Stone Cold and The Rock with the Stone Cold heel turn. You had then that gimmick battle royal, remember the gimmick battle royal?
Yeah.
Then I think it was, what was it? The hardcore title match? Was it Raven?
Big Show, and I think Kane was in it, Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
Benoit, and then Jericho versus Regal. Like some really good. Jericho versus Regal
was a good match. Yeah, that was a good card. That was kind of the beginning of the end of the Attitude Era. That was the beginning of the end. Yeah, that was good points here. In my opinion, ECW should have stayed as a company until 2011. If you're saying the first incarnation, yes, the first, not the re-aborted Vince 2005, 2006. We're gonna basically make a mockery of ECW. But if you're correct, but I could do a whole show on that. But that's all because of money and funding, and we also knew that ECW Vince was actually funding ECW. That's a whole another show. The end of an era topped it all. Yes, I agree with you all that. I could get into a lot. I think this was fun. We'll definitely do a show next week. Maybe we'll see if we can do a show post-Rumble. I don't know what your schedule is next Saturday. Maybe we'll do something with a couple of guys. Depends on scheduling. But in the meantime, I want to give you the floor, champ, and always good to be with you. I think I should actually play it on the screen here one more time because we actually do have a bunch of people here. So let's pull the banner up here as we get to closing thoughts and pull it up here to remind people you are a Hall of Famer on Sportzwire Radio. So if you're out there, you get to see it because we do have some people tuned in, and wanted to give you the floor. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? And for those that are watching, enjoy Randy's banner.
Thanks, Tom. Always a pleasure talking to you, especially about wrestling. Listen, it's going to be interesting. Going back to earlier, we talked about what's going to happen with Monday with Seth Rollins. We're going to get CM Punk back on Monday to see what's going to happen. The one thing I'm really interested, I've read, is they could do Cody versus Rock versus Roman. I don't know.
I don't like it. I do not like that at all. Do not like it.
I know a lot of people are against it, but I think it might be the only way you can kind of keep Cody with his moment because you're trying to
keep keep the moment where you could still let him finish the story, but I think it'll get lost in translation. I don't like it.
It definitely is a weird one there. And then the other thing I'm really keeping an eye on with everything that's going on in wrestling, Damage Control and Bayley, I think, has been a very underrated story right now. How they're pushing her out of the group, making her feel unwanted, and what they're building.
They're slow burning it. Agreed. Yeah, they're slow burning it. Yeah.
It is very interesting what's going on there. It's really entertaining. And then the other thing is, I'm really interested to see this Author of Pain and Karrion Kross duel. I think this has them.
Yeah, I think, and you know what? Karrion Kross gets some direction. They're going against the Hurt Business, it looks like, and I think Paul Ellering back. I mean, yeah, that's a good one. I think that's going to be one of those that maybe you see for the first time. Karrion Kross gets some kind of almost direction because he's not really had direction in a long time. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, so definitely there. If you hear my wrestling opinions, me tweeting about something Tony Khan crying about another day. I know it's immature. This is Tony Khan. Listen, I respect the guy, what he's done. AEW is probably the best thing that could have came into the wrestling.
Listen, you could argue that because of competition, it made WWE get on their game.
100%, forcing a lot of other companies to pick up their game, become better. But he does do some foolish things as a 5-year-old, but that's not the point. But if you want to hear those things, follow me at Twitter at Randy Dillon, DHILLON. a lot of things going on hockey. If you're a hockey fan, hear me there. I know we'll be talking more about the NHL, the season. We're at the halfway mark.
Yeah, Devils and Islanders and big doo-doo locally. And, Carolina's come back to Philadelphia Flyers. Conversely, the Oilers, I mean, what a run they've had the last 2.5 months. And, you got a crash collision course with Winnipeg and Colorado. And, a lot there in the NHL. Vegas, once again, Kraken have come back. There's a lot
the Toronto Maple Leafs are kind of in a tailspin right now. So that's funny.
That whole division there. Yeah. I mean, Tampa's come back a little bit. Florida's come back to earth. I mean, it's a lot to go into this year, throughout the records, because I think the playoffs are going to change a lot in playoff spots. And you can follow Randy on all those awesome platforms at Randy Dillon. And you can see also living proof that he's a member of the Hall of Fame and he's friends with Jinder Mahal. Like I was telling everybody, he was giving Jinder that advice to wrestle as well as he did. And there you have it. So two champions, one of those a Hall of Famer. Jinder's not a Hall of Famer, but Randy is. That's why you got a Hall of Famer. And we got the better of the two. We got Randy over Jinder instead. But we also, yes, I agree with Jules. Randy's always been one of my favorites. Randy's always been one of my favorites. Always loved when Randy, we were doing those shows, you'd call in and we talk about the NHL, we talk about wrestling. It's so good to have you Friday nights. We love the podcast. Hope it comes back soon. And
we got a hockey fan check coming along. We should have one ready by the end of this weekend. Talking to a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. So
that's an interesting conversation. I'm going to be listening to. Is it going to be our old friend Jen?
Not Jen. I haven't talked to Jen. Well, it'll be someone different.
Jen's a character. I mean, Jen came on Sportswire a while back as well, but I wish her well. And Sting was good. Yeah, it was good, but it was just, I mean, listen, I could do a show on that all day, how I felt. But great stuff. Randy, thank you for all that you do. I can't wait till next Friday. Maybe we'll do a show about the Rumble afterwards. We'll have to find out. But in the meantime, if you're on sportswireradio.org, you're going back to your regularly scheduled programming. If you're on Twitch for the first time, thank you for joining us. We had some Twitch followers out there and also on YouTube and Twitter. I'll be back here tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern time with had to sneeze there. Yes, I'm human. We have Luke Leyland tomorrow. One more time, I cannot stress enough. If you want to tune into that one, the first ever non-African fighter to have fought in Dambe. Also, check us out on YouTube. But until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on the number one global radio station. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryson. Thank you again. Also, thank you to the Work in Progress guys for being inducted into our Sportswire Radio's Hall of Fame. But until then, we'll see everybody next week on the number one global radio station that is Sports.